Hello, everyone, and welcome to Healthy at Work. My name is Catherine Wilcox, a workplace health specialist with a big passion for helping people thrive at work. From the home office to the corporate office, from the assembly line to the front line, I've got you covered here for your healthiest life at work. Now let's dive into today's show. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Healthy at Work. If you're new here, my name is Catherine Wilcox, and I'm your host. Here at Healthy at Work, we talk about all things workplace health. And I wanted to do an episode that was specifically focused on the times that we find ourselves living through and how we can continue to show up as human in the workplace when our world is saturated with chaos, volatility, war, unpredictability, anxiety around the future and what's to come. Now, for some workplaces, it's business as usual. That's the way that some workplaces are trying to navigate this time. People are not sure what to say. People are not sure what to do. Some workplaces, there's a sense of uncertainty around if there's global conflict, for example, of wanting to support all people in that conflict, not wanting to take sides, wanting to be a place of political neutrality and wanting to uphold the human rights of all people within the workplace. So what I'm noticing from my vantage point is that people are quite unsure what they can and cannot say in the workplace. Leaders are quite concerned around supporting people and ensuring that everyone has care and support. I think we're noticing that many people within our workplaces aren't doing well. And this has led to a lot of silence, to be honest. Silence and uncertainty, and the sense of we're just going to carry on here, and people are resilient. That's a lot of the talk that I'm hearing. And so today I wanted to give us some ideas around what we could do a bit differently. There is a lot of crisis. There is a lot of chaos. There is a lot of economic uncertainty and instability. There is a lot going on outside of the workplace that impacts people's ability to be functioning well within it. And so today I wanted to offer 3 different ideas around how we can stay connected to our humanity in these times when, many people are feeling hopeless. They're feeling anxious. They're feeling disengaged and nervous about what's to come. We've never had more access to trauma exposure in real time of horrific events that are occurring all over the world. So these are some of the things that have changed. And so as employers, as people within the workplace, as leaders, I really want us to think about how we can maintain that connection to our humanness. When human beings are overwhelmed, one of the things that we might notice ourselves doing is dissociating or checking out or disengaging, just as a way of trying to cope and trying to survive the experience that we find ourselves in. So, how does this show up? What I notice is that people are almost like in a freeze response. They're not sure what to do. They're not sure what to say. Organizations might be trying to carry on as business as usual. Not saying much, not taking much action, not checking in on people. And so, it's not business as usual. Our world is being fundamentally reorganized at this time in human history. And so, how do we support people to navigate through this time? One of the things that I notice organizationally that, I think we really need to reconsider is this narrative around, business as usual or resilience. And I'll clarify what I mean by that in a minute. But the sense of like, let's just carry on. We'll carry on. We'll, throw ourselves into the task at hand. We will try to continue in the way that we have in the past, not really acknowledging how much the world has changed and continues to change. And so one of the ways we can try to get people through very turbulent times in human history in the workplace is to feed this narrative around resilience, right? And to offer resilience training and to talk about how we'll get through this. And I'm not saying any of those things are bad. I've been practicing counseling psychology for 20 years now, studying human behavior, and I absolutely believe in the capacity of humans to be adaptable, flexible, and resilient. However, what I find is that this conversation about resilience often comes at the wrong time, meaning when crisis is unfolding and crisis is happening, people tend to be more focused on surviving the experience as opposed to, bouncing back better or, thriving. That is absolutely something humans are capable of. But first, human beings need to survive the experience that they're in. And one of the ways we can do that as colleagues, as leaders, and as organizations is really refocusing on the sense of what it means to be a human when we're experiencing threat, crisis, and danger. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into in this podcast today. So I wanted to offer today 3 different ideas around how to refocus on our humanity and how to support one another given our crisis saturated world. And so the first one I've already alluded to, and that is being mindful around this talk about resilience. And again, just to clarify, I support this idea of resilience. I believe that that is part of us as humans, is our ability to be flexible, to adapt, to take really challenging experiences and conditions and to become better as a result of them. And the pathway to that, in my personal opinion, is first of all to accept exactly where we are. So what does that look like in the workplace? I think we need to accept that people might not be coping very well, that people might feel overwhelmed, that many of our employees actually might be grieving. They might be grieving actual loss. They might be grieving a time in human history where things seemed a little bit simpler or more stable. They might be grieving a sense of certainty. Many people have had to adjust their lifestyles to accommodate for what's happening economically. So, and there may be losses, that are very personal to each of us, depending on our lived experience. And so, I think the first step on this path to becoming more resilient is always to be able to accept exactly where people are, to be able to acknowledge that. And sometimes I think there is a fear that if we name sadness and grief and anger and impact and frustration, that people get stuck there. And my experience is actually the opposite of that. That firstly, we do actually need to accept and name and hear and acknowledge and listen to people in order to validate what they're feeling. It doesn't necessarily mean that we agree with what they're feeling or that their feelings are our own. But this is one of the things that we desperately need as human beings, is to feel seen and to feel heard and perhaps even understood. So first idea here is, watch the talk about resilience. It's okay to talk about resilience and coping and getting to the other side of that, but don't rush through that experience. Don't rush that. Allow for feeling and grief and acceptance first before we start, pushing people to perform and, be productive. This is part of what it means to be human. So really accepting where people are at. The second thing I wanted to offer today is the idea that it's okay to not know what to say and what to do. We live in a time of highly curated um, communications, right? With social media, even with the use of AI, people can find the perfect messaging, the perfect words. Often there's a pressure, particularly in, public digital spaces to, say the perfect thing, to have the perfect post, the perfect message. A tragedy happens, and I think, many of us know the formula, right? We see it whenever there's a crisis. Like, we stand with our hearts go out to, and then all of the resources and supports that are available. And I know I've crafted those messages myself. Um, so that sense of, what do I say, what do I do, and in the workplace, one of the ways that this can show up is when a crisis, a tragedy hits. Um, Employers are not sure what they can say or what to say or what would be supportive or useful and helpful. And so sometimes what ends up happening is nothing is said at all, right? And so one of the things to really think about, whether, you're a leader or a colleague that's maybe trying to support somebody in your workplace that's impacted by a crisis, is it's okay not to have the perfect response. It's okay, to struggle with that. Here are some ideas of things to say when you're in that position. I really care, and I want you to know I'm thinking about you. I have no idea, what the right thing to say is here. So it's okay to actually even name that. I'm at a loss for words. Um, and I want you to know that I'm here. I'm here. And this brings me to the point around um, people will remember, I feel, more so than the words that you actually say, or, like, the perfect thing, um, the way that you showed up for them, the quality of your presence. Okay. Silence also speaks, but I'm not talking about the silence in which we're not saying anything, we're not doing anything, we're kind of just feeling frozen and stuck and unsure what to say or do. The silence of, I'm here, I care, I'm not sure what to say, you know, I can see this is really impactful. I just want you to know that I'm thinking about you. Okay. That in and of itself meets, I feel, that human need that we all have to be seen and heard and understood. So, second takeaway here, don't need to have the perfect words, right? Don't need to have the perfect words. Have words that come from your heart, come with sincerity, and come owning that, we are living in, you know, times that are so unpredictable and so new for many of us that have had, for example, privilege of growing up in, in an area of the world perhaps where we have a certain level of stability, that of course we're not going to have the right words. Doesn't mean we don't care. It doesn't mean that we can't express that care. Which brings me to my third point here. And to make my third point, I want to share a little bit with you around the culture that I come from. I was born in Newfoundland, which is an island on the east coast of Canada. And if anybody listening out there knows a little bit about Newfoundland and the culture there, it is very much a collectivist culture, meaning, people really take care of each other. There is a culture of hospitality and neighborliness that I feel very personally proud to have been raised in. And so when there's crisis, for example, when there's death or, diagnosis or something, really horrible has happened, um, people bring food. People bring food. I can remember this around, some of the losses, for example, of my grandparents, and, having the funerals there. And there was like no place to lay the food down. Everybody comes with something. And the point of coming with something is not because people, are not going to have a lack of food necessarily. It's a gesture, it's an action, and it communicates a sense of care. And so, why am I sharing this story? Well, my third idea here, in terms of remaining human and connected to our humanity, is just do something, you know, and again, don't fuss, don't, think about what is the perfect thing, the perfect gesture to make. Make the casserole, send the food delivery service, write the handwritten card and leave it. Um, Show up. This is the other thing. And for you Newfoundlanders listening out there, you'll know what I mean. People don't wait for the convenient time to to come by or drop by. They show up, and it might be inconvenient, and it might not work for the person to kind of come by. But just do the thing. And now, why am I suggesting this? Well, because when we're in crisis, sometimes we, and I do this too, will offer the message of like, if you need anything, let me know. You know, if you're, how can I support you? If you need anything, I'm right here. Now, I've said that, to people, and people have said that to me. And, how many of you listening or watching out there have actually taken people up on that offer? I'm sure some of you have. I can share just personally, many times in my own life, I have not. Because when we're struggling and when we're in crisis, it is really hard to get the part of our brain online that can think things through, can make good decisions. Again, we're focused on surviving here. So some people, when they're in crisis, will have absolutely no idea what it is that they need and what could be helpful or useful to them. And so make the casserole, deliver it. They might not eat it. They might be gluten-free. They might be a vegetarian. That thing might be going right into the compost. So be it. What you did was show up for somebody and provide that action, that I care. And that is what will be remembered by most of us. Not the fact that we necessarily got it perfect or got it right, but the fact that we showed up and we showed our care. So those are the three things that I wanted to offer today. The first, just to recap, being awareness of the resilience conversation and, being really mindful around the timing of trying to encourage and cheerlead people through a crisis. People are resilient. They are adaptable. But first of all, we have to acknowledge exactly where people are at. So it's okay to acknowledge feelings. It's okay to name grief. It's okay for people not to be okay. We have to accept that. That's a part of being a human being. So really want to focus on seeing people, hearing people, accepting where they're at. The second reminder, you don't have to say the perfect thing. This is not about perfection. It's about care. So being able to say, wow, this is really tough, or wow, I'm thinking about you, or wow, I can see how impactful this is, to you. And I'm not sure what to say, and I'm not sure what to do, but I'm here. So remembering that presence is more important than the exact, perfect words that are going to come out of our mouths. And then the third thing here is just, do the thing. When people are in crisis, they might not know what they need. They might not be able to reach out for that help as easily. They're trying to survive. So take some action. And again, we're not trying to be perfect here. This is about being human and supporting each other. So those are my three ideas for you today. I know it's a hard time to be alive as a human right now. And my wish for you is that you support yourself and one another as we navigate through this really complex time. So if you found any value in things that you heard today, I invite you to share this episode with others, to like it, to pass it along, or to subscribe to this channel, as we'll be having many more conversations in the weeks and months to come about how to support one another in the workplace and beyond it as well. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks everyone for listening. Be well. Thanks for listening today. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not medical advice or mental health treatment. If you're struggling at work, please reach out to the supports within your workplace or community. This podcast was gratefully recorded on the unceded and ancestral homelands of the Lekwungen-speaking people of the Songhees and Esquimalt nations.